Welcome to FKC Health. I'm Frederick Krasey, and today I have with me Iesha Delune from Wholistic Vitality. Now, I have found Iesha through Rick Boland, who's our youth mentor, and he's highly recommended Iesha to come on our presentation show. And she is a qualified holistic life coach and also an accomplished writer and program creator. So, Iesha, how did you come to be in this situation doing these things?
Hello, first of all, and thank you for having me.
Pleasure.
And it's a great question and would be a long and involved answer. I think if I can speak on behalf of our industry, a lot of us are drawn to this work from healing our own pain or our own, certainly for me, growing up, I had some physical pain and physical issues resulting from a complicated horse accident. So I came into natural therapies as part of pain management and pain relief, and had my eyes opened from those experiences really quite young. And finding ways to address lack of confidence, issues that would arise in my friendships and relationships. So I really entered into this world looking for answers for myself. And I'm such a lover of learning, and I love people. I'm the kind of person that people meet and they've told me their whole life story the first time. It's always been my life experience that people open up and share with me. So anything that I came across that really helped me in some way, I tended to, when I found a good teacher or a good modality, I'd go all the way with it. So I'd do the courses, I'd go through to teacher training, and I'm still learning now and still studying. And that's kind of how my life's gone over the last 25 years since that first modality when I was 19. So just learning, integrating, using and sharing has pretty much been the ongoing pathway.
I can see from having a good look at your website that you're accomplished in a lot of areas. You know, you've touched on some things. Would you like to give us a smattering of some of the things you've been involved in to bring you to be a holistic life coach?
Beautiful, thank you. Yes, there's quite a lot. I started, massage was the very first thing that I did, and I loved what would happen from relaxing a body and what would happen in terms of people having, different energy, being relaxed, what would happen in the mind. And I think that opened me up into learning about mindsets and, the way that we go into things determined how we feel about it. So a lot of reading and studying there, ending up down the pathways of several NLP trainings and counseling and holistic counseling, and also a lot of body work. So I came across Reiki very early on in my journey and had a very powerful experience with that, which led to training with a couple of teachers all the way through to Reiki mastery, being able to pass that teaching on. Qigong is another modality that I fell in love with, that I went through into becoming an instructor. So Qigong is a slow moving martial art like Tai Chi, for those of you that haven't come across it. Meditation, a lot of different on the table healing techniques, including Tibetan healing techniques, craniosacral therapy, color puncture, which was like acupuncture done with colored light. Like I've done lots of really interesting things, and certainly bringing it together in a coaching modality, different coaching training, just really helping people be landed in the present and really looking forward to what they want. I found counseling often had a backward approach, and I really love that coaching has for me anyway, that holistic view of who are you, where are you, where do you want to be, and let's plot the pathway from here to there. And if we need to look backwards on the way, that's okay, but we're facing forward. So that's why I tend to call myself a coach these days.
Okay, that's cool. I can certainly respect dipping yourself in a lot of inkwells. I actually was very skeptical at the beginning of my journey at a young age of the different modalities that are available, because I felt a lot of woo-woos and new ages and all this sort of stuff. But I opened myself up in later life to things like Reiki and NLP and spiral dynamics and integral theory and a whole lot of maps and models and different courses. And what I found is when you embrace a direction, if you have the faith that it's got some sort of power or benefit, it will trigger things off in your mind to find those benefits. People can say it's a placebo effect, but I think it's a little bit more than that. But I'm very convinced that somebody with the background that you have could add so much value to people because of your holism, because of your varied experience and perspectives, dipping yourself in all those inkwells, because each one of these person who embraces one of these modalities in their life somewhere, it's very real to them. It operates for them because that's their neurological wiring. So tell me, you work with things in the area of working holistically in the body, mind, and soul. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I can. And thank you for asking in that way. I believe that each human being is a unique, expression of life. So if we were talking, patterns, I kind of think of it as every person having their own unique fractal pattern, and we're here to play the role we're here to play, like pieces in a puzzle. So we're not all meant to be the top right-hand corner piece. That doesn't create a picture. In the orchestra of life, we can't all be the trumpet. Like we're all here to play the music that is our own innate nature. And I teach through my work that, we all have a care label, just like a plant does, or just like this jumper does. And if I washed this in hot water, it'd end up a shriveled wreck. And if I put, a beautiful, delicate plant out in full sunshine all day, it would be a shriveled wreck. And a lot of human beings end up planting themselves in life circumstances where they're shriveled and they're not thriving. And they often then blame themselves. It's like they're the problem. Whereas the work for me is really about coming home to the truth of who you are and what do you as an individual need to thrive. Because what the tropical fish needs and what the Tasmanian salmon needs, they're going to be different. And what you need to thrive and what I need to thrive, they're going to be different. So it's really about, I think, this depth and breadth of knowledge of all those different modalities helps me to see a person without preconceived ideas. And it's really about me meeting them, helping each person come home to the truth of them, not pushing them through a coaching methodology that I wrote up before I even met them. It's kind of, who are you? What makes you feel alive? What makes you come alive? And really getting to know yourself so that you can give yourself what you need to thrive. So I think that variety really, really helps.
And I think from my own experience, which I can relate to yours, is we seem to, as human beings and people like us that went in for our own healing to work out these modalities, maybe if I learn this, I can fix this and I can fix that. One of my daughters said to me once, Dad, why do you dig a hole and jump in it and then get out and go, ta-da, see, I solved it? But she said, you created the problem in the first place. Now, I know we create our life and I know we get into these troubles and these nooks and crannies and these deep, dark wells and interesting places. And it's a journey. But I think the confidence comes when you start to see how these modalities address the challenges we're in, and you get a library and then you're able to map them across and you realize, oh, I have a repertoire of toolkit to be able to deal with life. And I think people who would come to you as they come to me similarly, they haven't been in this position before. They've been lucky in life for a while, and they haven't built up the resilience or the resources or the intelligences to escape that trap. And I really liked what you said, when people are doing their life in a particular way and they're trapped in that debilitation, that restriction. And one of my favorite sayings is, I think it's time to do my life differently. When I've dug one of those holes, how's it applied to yourself, and where you've done the Houdini and got out of the circumstances that, you know, people say, oh, life did this to me. No, it's doing it for you, not to you. But, you know, how often have you used that process on yourself? Would you say for every modality you've studied?
Yeah, there's so much richness in what you've just said. There's about 4 different things I want to pick up and dive into. So, I mean, the first thing that I want to say is my definition of confidence, or that kind of effortless confidence, is being who you are. So none of us are confident trying to be what we're not. So to use the fish analogy before, the Tasmanian trout trying to pretend it was all, Tasmanian salmon trying to pretend it was all confident being a tropical fish while it was going, oh my God, this is terrible. You know, no one is confident in circumstances where, do you know what I mean, they're out of alignment with who they are. So I think early on in my modalities, as you said, I was searching for being fixed. And it took a long time I'm describing a 25-year process, and I'm still in process. It's not like I've arrived and here's my halo.
That's
but
cool what you're saying. Keep going.
I used to, the premise of needing to be fixed. What's the presupposition there is that I'm wrong, that something's wrong with me. And where I land now is more, so I mean, I got so much out of all of the modalities and all the searching, and they all had value. But I think the pivotal moment is when I landed in the real understanding that my body and our bodies are these incredible pieces of physiological machinery, and my feelings of wrongness, or my feelings of stress, or my feelings of anxiety, the feelings of flat, is innate wisdom letting me know something needs to change. So it's like if I'm too close to the fire on a winter's night, at some point my body goes, it's time to move back. But what I used to be doing was trying to find tools to just stay near the fire and try and fix my sweat response. And it's like, well, no, the wisdom is move my body. The wisdom is this isn't the right job for you. The wisdom is you're not expressing yourself in this relationship in a way that's truly honest. The wisdom is you've chameleoned to meet someone else's needs and you've forgotten yourself. There's always going to be a physiology that goes with that. And
wow,
I think the wisdom, the confidence is to understand that is innate wisdom. That's my body working perfectly. And we don't want to numb that away or medicate it away. We want to understand the feedback, like the fire, and move away or get that wisdom. So I did exactly what you said, learned a modality, do you know what I mean, went into it, and there's been that cycle for a lot of years. And probably the last 7, when I wrote my first book, there was all of this epiphany of putting all of that information together and realizing, oh, I'm at the center. And really that last part in that rich introduction to the question you asked me, is part of my work is teaching people about these 2 perceptual positions of cause and effect, and understanding that we can, and I'm sure you've come across this in your NLP work and other places too, we can stand as the cause in our life, or we can sit in the effect and in the passenger seat. So understanding that I get to choose, I'm the chooser, means I can adjust.
Every time,
so I don't dig holes anymore. Life happens and I learn and grow, and maybe the skill set of today won't be enough for tomorrow, which will stimulate some learning, but there's not the holes anymore, which, not that there was anything wrong with them.
every time I land in the effect, I've chain anchored myself to go back to the cause and live at cause, because if I'm living at effect, it's never pleasant. And I think what you're sharing, there's a cliche word about being authentic, but it's not a cliche. If you're not authentic, if you're not genuinely living your own life and expressing your own values, beliefs, and having your own experience, who's driving the bus? And if you're not congruent, and I can see that already by just talking to you. This is the first time we've met. We've been introduced and we've had a little chat before the show, but what I'm really getting present to is what you're saying is powerfully resonating, that we are dynamic vehicles, dynamic machines, and the complexity is not only far stranger, stranger than we can imagine, but far stranger than we can imagine. We're complex beings, but if we're not well, that dis-ease stems from so many influences. It can be even external. It can be environmental, mental, emotional, spiritual, financial, relational. The list is quite comprehensive. So you can't deal with these things from a single modality. And that's why, people go, oh, it's not evidence-based, and I was always evidence-based in the beginning, but when I was introduced to Reiki, I was going, oh yeah, it was the Clayton's massage, it's the massage you're having when you're not having a massage, because I didn't know what it was, and I was sadly disappointed. I thought I paid $80 for that. Well, it wasn't until a friend of mine come back and swore black and blue at one of my coaching clients. I said, oh, you into Reiki? Oh yeah, and I gave her my spin on it. And she said, well, I'm actually, I met this lady and I'm going to do a Reiki 1. And I don't know what behooved me to do this, but I said, yeah, I'll come. I'll do it with you. And she just looked at me strange. And I told my kids and my ex, and they just cracked up. They were rolling on the floor. You do Reiki? Dad, you're not into it, After Reiki 1, I sort of stood back and I had to reevaluate some things because of what I witnessed and what I experienced. I was still skeptical. But so Reiki 2 came along. And I said, yeah, I've got to do Reiki 2.
Oh, and then you learnt some symbols, and that would have been interesting for your brain.
The biggest thing I learned, that a good guitarist can't leave their guitar alone. A good photographer can't leave their camera alone. And I've been a counsellor for 35 years and a developmental person and personal development, life coach, the whole shooting match. But in simplicity, I've been somebody who's very compassionate and empathetic to other people's challenges and suffering. I've been a sufferer, so I have empathy. It's not going to go away. I've walked away from it many times, but life has just pulled me back to the beginning and said, when you're congruent, when you're doing this, this is where you are and this is who you are. And every time you decide from the shiny object syndrome to run off and do something else, doesn't last. Doesn't always end up good. Can be pleasant, can be interesting, gives me another string in the bow and another learning. But I've come back to my center and focus to live that authenticism that you're talking about, to listen to the body and step back from the fire. I've worked with a lot of people who suffer from anxiety and depression and other challenges. I've narrowed my focus a bit because I've always got empathy when someone's sad and dull. You work with anxiety and depression as well with your clients a lot in your holistic coaching. Is that part of it? Not the main focus, but part of what you do?
It's like I said to you before, when someone comes along, people tend to come for their own reasons. And I've never done that micro niche thing where I just deal with spiritually minded plumbers or those kind of, these niches. So people come, they're usually referred in, and some, their primary reason for coming is because they're really struggling with anxiety. For others, they're wanting career change. And if they do have a bit of anxiety, then that becomes part of it. But there has been clients that come and that's their main outcome, that they're wanting healing around. And it is an incredibly satisfying part of my work. It was one of the major stimulations around the second book that I wrote, The Happiness Recipe, wanting to really help people to understand that emotional feedback, our emotions are feedback. So even, and this is a potentially unpopular opinion, and whoever is listening, you are welcome to disagree in life. Consider what I'm about to say as part of a smorgasbord, and if it's interesting, pick it up and have a taste, and if it's not, then just pass on by to whatever you want. But in my therapeutic career, I have never come across a case of anxiety or depression that didn't make sense circumstantially, where the anxiety or the depression, those experiences were feedback, like the fire I was saying before, feedback that something needed to change. And like what you were saying before, perhaps that change is diet, perhaps it's in relationships. And I don't mean, most of my clients don't leave their partners, but their relationship dramatically transforms. Perhaps it's in, you're a creative person in a job where there's no scope for creativity and you're too tired at the end of it to do your own creativity. Your innate wisdom, your soul is going to be giving you feedback. So to me, anxiety, depression, stress, they're not meant to be managed. They're meant to be listened to and deeply understood. And in my therapeutic experience, when we do that and we do it holistically, those feedback mechanisms, what I'm saying is those emotions are no longer present. When the tropical fish is in the tropics, when the creative person is living a creative life, the body no longer needs that anxiety and depression as guiding sticks.
It's interesting how I find anxiety and depression like hues or colors, like a rainbow. There's different expressions of it and different degrees. And I notice, again, looking through the research I did in your work, is you deal with the stress and balances. And I find a parallel or an understanding. I wonder if this means anything to you. When I've met somebody in need, and it can be a compilation of things, as you drill down, and I use various processes, and then I find, the surface process, and then there's something down underneath at another level, and I keep drilling and I keep finding, this is the core value or the core belief or the core problem that came for this, and it was that. And I find with that journey of challenge, I was working with one client and I had made some real assessments about this person's beingness. It was very demonstrative, and I had an aversion to her, but I had to work with her, and I actually worked with her for quite a few years. And oh my God, the issue after dealing with a whole spectrum of challenges was simply overwhelm. Bloody overwhelm. When the overwhelm was removed, I discovered a totally different human being who's now a lifelong friend, and I don't have those aversions. That was a learning and a process for me at the same time. There's a bit of mirror stuff going on there. But as I proceeded to unwrap and unfold, I found this person was in overwhelm. And what I found that it's basically everybody who's suffering something is in some sort of overwhelm. They've taken on too much in some way, shape or form, and they're bent out of shape. So if you put your...
either too much or like, I mean, this is a funny way to look at it, but let's imagine, this isn't how it is, but let's imagine everyone can handle 5 buckets of life stuff. I'm just making up a funny analogy on the spot.
No, it's a cool one.
Sometimes people are just carrying 5 buckets. They're 5 buckets, and it wouldn't be overwhelming if it was actually their 5 buckets. So sometimes overwhelm isn't how much, it's more about the content. So as an example, when you're doing work that you love, the challenges that come up as part of that can actually be part of deep satisfaction. When you're doing work that you don't even want to go to and something happens, it's like it's just this extra thing that creates this layer of overwhelm. And the problem isn't the extra thing. The problem is you never wanted to be there before the problem. So often it's often overwhelm, I find, is often it's really in the foundation. It's in the
That's an interesting way
foundation.
to look at it, Iesha, because I know in my life I've enrolled in someone else's plans and dreams, and I've gone to work for them, and I've put my heart and soul into it, and it's all hunky-dory. And then you see an empirical agenda inside the leadership that doesn't really serve anything other than their ego, and you can't congruently enlist and support it, but then it becomes a demand and a condition of your existence in that environment, hence the stress and the overwhelm. I've seen it time and time again.
Yes.
And I really like what you said then about the 5 buckets. It's fine if they're your buckets and you chose them and you're enjoying them. Maybe you could even take on a 6th. But if the 5 buckets are not yours, even 4 might be too much. So it's context and content related, not so much always quantity. It can be quantity, but I think it gets to quantity when you're trying to fit your own life back in on top of the expectations of other people. And that's when it gets overwhelmed. When I have a favorite saying with all my coaching, counseling, consulting. Is this my gig? Saved my life, because I used to go and where angels fear to tread and try and solve everything, trying to fix everything. I don't do that anymore, and it's revolutionized my life, and it's actually improved the quality of what I deliver, because you can't really deal with others unless you're in good shape yourself. So if you're going to massage, you should be in good energy and good shape before you go to the client. If you're going to Reiki practice, any of these modalities where you're working through things. And I love what Carl Jung said. He said, learn all your modalities and your formulas and all the rest of it. But when you get face to face with a client, forget it all. And what he's really saying is, I'm not a da-da-da-da practitioner or whatever. I'm a compassionate, empathetic human being here to serve you. I'm a life servant. So when I reach down into the tool bag, I'm only reaching for a socket set, a screwdriver, a spanner, or a pair of pliers. And it could be a number of sizes and kits. So I'm not consciously thinking of what tool or what toolbox in the toolbox I'm reaching for. I'm hybriding what I need because I've become present to that person's need. And I get when you say, I don't call myself a holistic life coach, and I'm probably not one, but I really understand the holism and I appreciate the depth of what you do. So tell me the difference between surface happiness and soul deep happiness.
Beautiful. So, I mean, it's one of the key themes in the Happiness Recipe book, and it's something I just wasn't finding that it was being spoken about. So hence, this is where books are birthed. So by definition, surface happiness is a chemical reaction. So the human body is its own pharmacy, and every thought you think and everything you do creates a chemistry. So surface happiness is transient in its nature because it's related to what we're doing moment by moment. So if my life was an absolute misery, but you and I have a chat, maybe we love dancing and we go out dancing, we have a really fun night, that's surface happiness. Because I'm having a chemical shift. I love dancing, I love chatting, I've had a good time, but no amount of surface happiness is going to solve deeper life incongruencies. So surface happiness is chemical. We have a hit of it if we have enjoyable sex, if we exercise, if we complete a goal and get that hit of dopamine. And surface happiness is wonderful. But I was seeing a lot of people striving for surface happiness. And it's kind of like building an extension on a house, another couple of stories on top of a house, and you haven't addressed the foundations. It's like at some point it all, do you know what I mean, is going to come crashing down. So soul deep happiness is when your mind, body, heart, and soul are all in alignment and saying yes to your life. This is where you're a round peg in a round hole. You're the tropical fish in the tropical ocean. And soul deep happiness. I had a discovery call this morning with a new client, and he wasn't spiritual, so I explained soul deep happiness as congruency. When you are living in alignment with your personality and your values, we have a deeper happiness that is really solid. And when we're aligned, so body, heart, mind, and soul all in alignment, happiness is the effortless result. It is that simple being that's happiness even in the calm. You don't have to do anything to make it happen. And it's actually a happiness that holds you beautifully through life's challenges as well. We can have that soul deep alignment, and it really holds us and makes things like grieving easier or transitions in life easier. So I felt like it was really important to speak to the differences. And it's not that either one is better, but that soul deep congruency is truly life-changing. It's addressing the foundation, and it's welcoming people to really come home to the truth of who they are. And you can have a fun night out dancing as well, but you're not you're not doing it as a disconnect.
Honestly, from my heart, I will watch this back when it's all edited and everything, but I feel I might watch it more than once, because you've shared today some things that have touched chords within me that I want to go back and address for myself. You've impacted me. It's very, very cool what you're sharing. And I think for the viewers, if they really get present to this and don't get distracted and go through it, there's a lot of value in what you're saying from an alignment and a congruency perspective. Because if you're not congruent, you've got sabotage going on at several levels. You can't fulfill on your destiny, your life, and your happiness, because you've got two different opposing forces, or several opposing forces. So it is about alignment and congruency and values and beliefs. You're spot on. I'm very impressed with.
And it's exhausting, by the way. Those opposing forces, you're using energy even if you're just lying in bed. Like it's a very draining. It's very draining.
That's where the saying "been there, done that, and got wasted" come from.
I always imagine that in a kind of 1970s kind of, there's a Woodstock visual of that for some reason for me.
Well, Iesha, this has been a nice journey, and I feel you're really going to add value to the listeners. How do people get in touch with you?
Well, they're welcome to pop along to the website. So my business is Wholistic Vitality, and the holistic is spelt with a W. So like a hole with a W rather than like a hole in the ground that we were talking about before. So holisticvitality.com.au. And there's some fairly easy ways. There'll be a contact me. You're welcome to send me an email. You can find me on social media as well. There's a Holistic Vitality with Iesha Delune Facebook page where I post a lot of free content. So whichever one of those ways calls to you, please.
That's very cool. When we upload this to YouTube, our YouTube channel, FKC Health, we will be putting your links. Rick will follow those through, and people will be able to contact you through those links. They'll all be down.
Beautiful.
Then we post.
Excellent. And LinkedIn is another good one too. Yeah. So I can do that. Yeah.
It'll be on LinkedIn, so you'll be able to filter all the links and share it around. You'll be able to either go to Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube. Well,
fantastic.
What a journey.
Thank you.
I would say after this, I'm definitely going to find ways to connect with you. And sometimes you meet people in your coaching and your counselling, and you know someone else is the right fit for them. So don't be surprised if we refer some people to you, and might take this conversation offline later and see how we can help each other moving forward.
That'd be beautiful.
I really love what you do. It's cool. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, well, it's congruent for me, and I love it. And it's beautiful likewise to meet someone that's got those decades of experience. It's beautiful, the freshness of new practitioners and the passion and the the decades of experience is
Definitely decades.
another energy. And I love it all. I love it all. Yay to all of us that are here helping other people be all they can be. I think we all want, you know, happiness and fulfillment. So I'm glad there's so many options for people.
I have been through some tough things in my life, but I can honestly say with conviction, I love my life. I'm a happy person, and the happiness isn't a bipolar staticism. It is a thing that when you walk on both sides of the road and there's the middle line, I did used to wander to the extremes, and I've compressed that down to a more narrower focus. So I can still have my highs and lows, but they're acceptable, they're healthy, gives you the joy, gives you the melancholy, so you've got some texture and depth, but it's not depression and it's not manic. So yeah, well, there you have it, folks.
Yay. Well, thank you so much for having me on your show. It's great to meet you.
Absolute pleasure.